In the last video, we discussed the fact that you were going for your building regulations approval, and that means that you'd have the construction drawings and the specification, which allows you now to actually cost out your build, having determined what all the different components are. So in this video, we're going to cover that costing process, lining up your contractors who's going to actually do the build, sourcing your materials, build warranties, insurance, the different build phases that you're going to go through, and ordering your materials. So that's what we're going to get stuck into just right now. But just before I do that, I wanted to just briefly introduce myself. I'm Jim J. Davidson. I'm a property developer, have been since 2003. My current company, Fineside Developments. Always had an interest in property since 1973, purchasing my first residential investment property, and then went into my own business in 1983. 2003 established Fineside Developments, a ground up property development business, completing its first new build in 2006, netting a gross development profit of over £100,000 from one single house. I'm the author of this book, You a Property Developer, and I'll tell you at the end of this video how you can get a free copy for yourself. Also, just for context, we are in, when we refer to the roadmap, we're in the file stage, and also don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. I really would appreciate your support. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our construction drawings and the specification that we discussed in the last video, and we're going to be able to cost it out. So there's several ways that we can do that. We can employ a quantity surveyor to do the costing for ourselves. We can send it off to a service where we can actually get them to produce a costing. The prices for that vary. Typically at the lower end, £200 to probably £600 or £700, depending on the service that you use. Or you can do it yourself. It's quite a time-consuming process. For my business, because we've been established quite a long time, we do it in-house. We have software that is able to do that. So the choice is yours, which way ever you do it, but it's important at this stage that you do this for a couple of reasons. One is you want to make sure that you understand what the final cost of that build is going to be, because you are going to probably have to top it up with finance. You're going to have to produce that information if you're wanting to secure finance, but also you are going to want to know that this project is still viable. And if you followed one of our earlier videos when we talked about how you would actually purchase the site, you still have the ability to walk away from it. If you find for some reason material prices have gone through the roof, or perhaps the planners have put conditions on there that have made it so onerous that it's just no longer viable to continue with the project. So it's really important that you do this, get a handle on it. The last thing you want to do is to be getting halfway or three quarters of the way through your build and find that you don't have enough money to complete it, and then worse is that even once you complete it, you're not making any profit. So it's very important that you carry out this estimation process. At the same time, you're going to be wanting to look at the team of people who are going to be putting this together. You will have chosen earlier on what your build route is, whether you're going to bring in a main contractor, which is going to be your most expensive route, whether you are going to bring in some subcontractors and manage the process yourself, whether you're going to bring in a project manager. So there's different options there. We've discussed some of those in the previous videos. But you're going to want to line up your contractors, and there's various ways that you do that. Checking out references is not necessarily always the best way, because they're just going to give you the references of their best clients and not the ones that maybe they didn't get on along with. So there's various ways to do that. It's one of the things that we talk about and show you how to do in the Property Developers Mastery Program, which is sort of accompanies this video set, but that's our formal training program. And if you want details on that, then you can certainly contact us and we will be able to give you some details on that. So therefore, then the other reason that you want to have this level of detail is because you need to know what the materials are, particularly if you're going to project manage the process yourself. You're going to want to have a bill of quantities. You want to know what the particular items are that you're going to need and the quantities, so that you can start getting quotes from builders, merchants and other different suppliers. So you're going to be sourcing that, and you want to be able to negotiate on those terms. Very difficult if you don't know what those materials are going to be. You want to know that in advance, because once you actually get into the build, although you might be double checking them at that stage, it tends to be a lot of time pressure on you, because you won't necessarily bring the materials in early enough, or you won't know what it is, or you won't necessarily have time to negotiate properly. So it's very important that you do this in this, what we call the planning stage. So very important to know what those materials are going to be. You're going to want to line up warranties, so like build warranties. So this is when you sell on the property, or indeed if you're going to rent it out and you're going to need any type of long-term financing on it, such as a mortgage, then you are going to have a build warranty. Now this is the warranty that is known as the 10-year warranty. So it means that a company then insures the structural integrity of the build for 10 years. Now, in fact, you have a responsibility for the first 2 years as the contractor, but beyond that, then they take over that responsibility. But fundamentally, whether you think the insurance is good or not, and there's various opinions about that within the industry, it's going to be a requirement of the mortgage provider that you have that. So it's very important that you have those things in place. And then you're going to want to think about insurances. You're going to have various types of insurances. You're going to have site insurance. You're going to be wanting to cover the liability for people who are on site. So while contractors should have their own insurance, and you want to certainly be checking that, you will have a certain responsibility. And then there's members of the public who probably shouldn't be on your site, but if they happen to wander onto your site, and then you subsequently get sued, because you possibly didn't have the right mitigation things in place, then you need to be able to cover that. So it's a specialist type of insurance, and therefore you need to have that in place to protect yourself. And that's really, really important, because you never know what can go wrong. For what it actually covers, it's not that expensive. So typically you're going to spend, depending on this, and I'm not going to actually give you a figure, because it really would depend on the size of the site and the number of units that you are building out there. And then what you're then going to be doing is then putting together your build program. So this is the different phases, so that you know when you're going to be bringing in, should I say, your different contractors. So the first phase is going to be fundamentally clearing the site, the foundations, but then beyond that, and depending on the method that you're building, whether you're building for timber frame or block work, depending on the method of construction, you're going to have to bring in your contractors at different phases. You need to know in advance where those people need to come in, and you need to be able to give them time scales so that you can line them up. If you don't do that, then you're going to have delays throughout your build, because you're not going to be able to call them up today and they're going to be there tomorrow. They've got other projects that they are involved in, and so they need to plan. They need to be able to plan their time as well. So it's not only requirement for you to be able to do it to make sure your build goes smoothly, but it's just a courtesy consideration. Don't expect people to be there at a drop of the hat. You're not necessarily their most important client, and particularly if you're starting out, you're unlikely to be their most important client. So very much important that you do that. And then what you're then going to do is you've got to put in a process of actually ordering materials. What's the process when you order materials? You will have negotiated a certain price that should come in at. So once you are billed for those materials, you want to make sure that you've been billed at the price that you were quoted, but you also want to on site make sure that you actually received the materials. So you've got to have a checking process on site. You're not necessarily always going to be there on site if you're project managing it. So what is the process of checking off those materials? Because once they are delivered, they are your responsibility, and you got to make sure that you got what you paid for. So you've got to have that process in, and then you've got to manage the payments going out, which is important also to look at your cash flow, because you've got to continually keep up to date your cash flow. Perhaps some phase suddenly has overrun, it's cost you a bit more. Particularly you're going to find this in the foundation stage, because that's where you're most likely to get your largest cost overruns, because certain things to do with the ground conditions may affect the type of construction or the depth that you have to go. That may change as a result of what you find when you start to dig out the site. And so that's fundamentally the planning stage. Now there's more to that. There's all the health and safety considerations, and that's going to be the subject of the next video. So the next video is going to be about health and safety. And just before I go, if you haven't subscribed, remember to subscribe. And if you want, incidentally, a copy of this book, if you go to You, a Property Developer, which is the title of the book, go to that site, You, a Property Developer. You'll find that there's the opportunity to be able to get a hard copy of this book. I do ask that you pay for the postage and packaging, so there's a £2.80 charge for that, but you get a free, you get the actual hard copy of the book, which will be delivered to your mailbox. So that's how you get a copy of that. If you want to see the next video, as I said, which is going to be on health and safety, it's going to be here. And if you want to see the previous video to this, which was about building regulations approval, it's going to be that video there. And there's also a link up this way actually for a copy of this book. See you on the next video, and take care until then. Bye bye.